Uzeyir Hajibeyov. Uzeyir Bey Abdulhuseyn Bey Oghla Hajibeyov, September 18, 1885 to November 23, 1948, was an Azerbaijani composer, musicologist and teacher. He is recognized as the father of Azerbaijani classical music. He composed the music of the national anthem of Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, which was readopted after Azerbaijan regained its independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. Hajibeyov also composed the anthem used by Azerbaijan during the Soviet period. He was the first composer of an opera in the Islamic world that he composed the first Oriental opera Layli and Majnun in 1908, and since then he is revered for adapting the written masterpiece to the theater. Uzeyir Hajibeyov was born in Aghjabadi, near Shusha of Azerbaijan, on September 18, 1885. His father, Abdulhuseyn Bey Hajibeyli, was the secretary to Khurshidbanu Natavan for many years, and his mother, Shirin, grew up in the Natavan household. Growing up, Hajibeyov was strongly influenced by Natavan's work. Shusha, often dubbed as the cradle of Azerbaijani music and culture, had a reputation for its musical heritage. The town was also referred to as the Music Conservatory of the Caucasus, because of its many talented musicians and singers. And the fact that Hajibeyov grew up in Shusha explains how at 22, in 1908, with very little formal musical education, he was capable of writing a full-length opera. Hajibeyov received his early education in a religious school, madrasa, where he perfected his Arabic and Persian, citation needed. Later he studied at a 2-year Russian Azerbaijani school. Here, with the help of his favorite teacher Mirza Mehdi Hassanzada, he familiarized himself with the heritage of the famous classic writers of the East and the West. The richness of the musical performance tradition of Shusha greatly influenced the musical education of Hajibeyov. He would later reflect on his experiences. The first musical education I got as a child in Shusha came from the best singers and saz players. At that time I sang mughams and tasnifs. The singers liked my voice. They would make me sing and teach me at the same time. Uzeyir Hajibeyov's first teacher was his uncle Aghalar Ali Vertabeyov, an excellent connoisseur of Azeri folk music. In 1897 to 1898, when Azerbaijani playwright Abdurrahim Bey Hagverdiv and singer Jabar Geriagdioglu staged the episode Majnun on Layli's grave from Layli and Majnun, 13-year-old Uzeyir sang in the choir. From 1899 to 1904 Uzeyir Hajibeyov studied at the Gori Pedagogical Seminary, later to be known as the Transcaucasian Teachers Seminary. There, along with general education, he also acquired music. In this school, Hajibeyov learned to play the violin, the violoncello, and the brass instrument. After his graduation from the Pedagogical Seminary, Uzeyir Hajibeyov was appointed a teacher to the village of Hadrat in Upper Qarabag. Having worked there for a year, Hajibeyov permanently settled in Baku, where he carried on his career in teaching mathematics, geography, history, Azerbaijani and Russian languages, and music. He wrote the Turkic-Russian and Russian-Turkic dictionary of political, legal, economic and military terms, used in press in 1907 and the textbook Arithmetic Problems in 1908, and had them published by the Orijov Brothers Publishing House in Baku. Hajibeyov was no stranger to the tragic chaos of war. He lived through the revolutions of 1905 and 1917, the fall of the Democratic Republic of Azerbaijan in 1920, and both world wars. The political repercussions of these military conquests often manifested in other forms of chaos. For example, between 1920 and 1940, the alphabet systems for writing Azerbaijani were changed 3 times, from Arabic to Latin, and from Latin to Cyrillic, a process which greatly hindered and interrupted the educational and cultural process, and may well have been one of the factors influencing Uzeyir Hajibeyov to present his ideas verbally on the musical stage. Merging traditional and Western styles. Throughout all the tumultuous change in Azerbaijan that took place between 1900 and 1940, one characteristic consistently reflects the character of Uzeyir Hajibeyov. He always searched for ways to merge and integrate the past with the present, rather than to discard either form. Rather curiously, even files at the Gori Pedagogical Seminary have shown his persistence in holding on to his own roots even under pressure. On December 3, 1900, when he was 15, it is noted that the student, Uzeyir Hajibeyov, was rebuked because he was talking in his native language. Conversely, when Russian-influenced musicians tried to ban traditional Azerbaijani instruments like the tar, zurna, and kamancha, Hajibeyov and his colleagues pushed to incorporate them into the Western orchestra, thereby giving them an even higher status and ultimately a chance to survive. Hajibeyov had the opportunity to open music schools that combined various educational systems. In these schools, national cadres who could integrate into the world music culture were trained. The history and music theory of Azerbaijani music were researched, and education classes were written. Uzeyir Hajibeyov in the field of music education combined and created in Azerbaijan Western and East traditions. Music. In 1908, Hajibeyov wrote his first opera, Leyli and Majnun, based on the tragic love story by the 15th-century poet Fuzuli. This would be the first of 7 operas and 3 musical comedies that Hajibeyov would compose throughout his life. In Leyli and Majnun, the uniqueness of the traditional modal music of Mugham was incorporated into a Western genre with the use of instruments indigenous to both traditions. Hajibeyov's second opera Sheikh Sanan was written in 1909 in a form that was entirely opposite to the first. This time Hajibeyov employed a purely European style. Sheikh Sanan received raves as a musical composition, but the content was too progressive for the period. In this opera, Hajibeyov advocated that marriage should not be bound by nationality or religion. In essence, it was another form of integration. But this time, it backfired. The storyline follows a religious sheikh on his way to Mecca who meets a very beautiful Georgian lady. To his horror, the lovely creature's father turns out to be a swineherd, caring for what, to him, was a forbidden animal. In the end, the sheikh denounces his religion to win the woman. It is said that when the opera was performed, many people were offended and walked out, leaving Hajibeyov with the realization that he had outpaced his generation too much this time. As a result, he made a drastic decision and burned the score. When asked by Ramazan Kalilov, his assistant, how he could do that, Hajibeyov replied, "I didn't destroy my opera. It's my own creation, so it's always in my head." Kalilov said that Hajibeyov went on to use this same magnificent music 27 years later to create Karaglu, an opera that many acclaimed to be his finest. In contrast to Sheikh Sanan, Hajibeyov's operas Rustam and Sorab, 1910, Asli and Karam, 1912, Shah Abbas and Khurshidbanu, 1912, and Haroun and Leyli, 1915, were entirely based on Azerbaijani folk music elements, primarily Mugham. In October 2006, the musical comedy Arshan Mal Alan, The Cloth Peddler, by Uzeyir Hajibeyov, written in 1914, was announced to be performed on Western stages for the first time. One of Hajibeyov's greatest legacies was bringing forward the idea of establishing a professional music school. Hence, the Baku Academy of Music, known then as the Azerbaijan State Conservatoire, was founded in 1920 and named after Hajibeyov after his death. The school has trained Azerbaijan's finest composers such as Garagareyev, Fikrat Amirov, Javdat Hajiev, Sultan Hajibeyov, Tafig Giliev, and Vagif Mustafazadeh. His statue sits in front of this grand building that is still devoted to the synthesizing Eastern and Western musical traditions. In 1931, Hajibeyov helped in establishing the Azeri Folk Instruments Orchestra affiliated with the Radio Committee. This orchestra performed European classical pieces, such as those by Mikhail Glinka, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Franz Schubert, Georges Bizet and others. Hajibeyov thus was the first musician to adapt the note system to traditional Azerbaijani musical instruments. In 1936, Hajibeyov assisted in the founding of the Azerbaijani State Choir within the Azerbaijan Philharmonic Society. One of the most serious problems he faced was the monovoiced repertoire of Azerbaijani folk songs, which allowed harmonization to distort style of the song and, on occasion, even alter the melody line when it changed modes. Hajibeyov resolved this problem by using contrapuntal polyphony and unison doubling rather than four-part singing in the problematic sections. Hajibeyov devoted much energy to the idea of integrating woman's role and status into the male-dominated world. The concept of women's emancipation runs through many of his works, often in the form of comedy or satirization, as in the case when he makes fun of the process of selecting marriage partners, a process hindered by the fact that women were still wearing veils until the 1920s when the Soviet regime prohibited them. Operas. Layli and Majnun. The opera art was established art not only in Azerbaijan, but also in the entire Muslim East by means of Hajibeyov's opera Layli and Majnun, which premiered on January 12, 1908, at the theater of Haji Zainalabdin Tagiev. Hajibeyov wrote with his brother Ceyhun Hajibeyli this libretto of the opera based on a poem of the same name written by Fazoli. The first performance was made by actor and director Hüseyin Arablinski. The bandmaster was the writer-dramatist Abdurrahim Bey Hagverdiyev. Huzinkalu Sarabsky was in the role of Majnun and Abdurrahim Farahov in the role of Layli. In next performances, Hajibeyov himself and his close friend and colleague, composer Muslim Magameyev, performed as bandmaster. This role was acted for the first time by Huzinkalu Sarablinski. Then, these people, Siji Ruhullah, Kanlar Hakverdiyev, Alovsat Sadigov, Sherzad Husinov, Gulaga Mamadov, Mays Salmanov, Gulu Askarov, Bakir Hashimov, Ali Madiyev, Arif Babayev, Baba Mirzov, Janali Akbarov, Safa Garamanov, Alam Gasimov and Mansoum Ibrahimov performed in a role of Majnun at the next performance. Karaglu. Karaglu opera premiered firstly on April 30, 1937, at the Azerbaijan Opera and Ballet Theatre. This is the first classical opera that based on the motives of heroic epic in Azerbaijan. In this opera, Hajibeyov created arias, mass choral scenes, various ensembles, ballet numbers and recitatives. In the next years of his life, he worked on Firuza opera. Musical comedies. Husband and Wife. The first musical comedy of Hajibeyov is Husband and Wife, which consists of 3 scenes. This is the first example of Azerbaijani musical comedy. The first premiere of it was in 1910. Sarabsky and Agdamsky performed in the roles of Marjan and Minute. Hajibeyov wrote the sketch of the comedy himself. If not that one, then this one. After Husband and Wife opera, he began to write the second operetta of him. The first premiere of it was at the Theatre of Mailov's Brothers in Baku in 1911. Later, this opera was translated into various languages, performed in Caucasian countries, Turkey, Bulgaria and other countries. Arshan Mal Alan. The first feature film based on Arshan Mal Alan musical comedy was shot in 1916. This film was the silent film. For the next time it was screened at Baku Movie Studio in 1945 with some changes on it. The main role of the film belonged to Rashid Bibyutov. This comedy again was screened in Baku in 1965. The director of the film was Tawfik Tagazada and Fikrat Amirov performed as a music redactor. It was translated into many languages such as English, German, Chinese, Arabic, Persian, Polish, etc. Publications. From 1919 to 1920 Hajibeyov served as editor-in-chief for the newspaper Azerbaijan, the main governmental media body of the Democratic Republic of Azerbaijan. In 1927, Hajibeyov published collection of Azerbaijani folk songs along with composer Muslim Magamayev. For the first time, more than 300 pieces of Azeri folk music were documented by notation. In 1945, he published the book entitled Principles of Azerbaijan Folk Music, which has been translated into several languages including English in 1985 devoted to the centenary of his birth.